Hi, how's it going, guys? We're going to get started here with some Decisive Campaigns Barbarossa pretty soon. This was a good pick for you guys. It's definitely a tough game. It's one we've tried before. Haven't managed to win as Germany.
Hi, how's it going, guys?
But we're going to get started. See how it goes. There we go, Colonia. Sorry for the double voices there. I had the player on. Alright, we'll be starting pretty soon. And of course, at this point in the game, I mean, you can definitely play as the Russians, and that's pretty fun, but it's much more a late game type victory, so we're going to play as the Germans, of course. Okay, so I'm thinking that you guys are obviously going to want the Geneva Convention off to make things tougher, or we could keep the Geneva Convention on. I think this is actually not a bad idea because it'll allow us to kind of deal with, you know, how the world would actually see us if we were extremely brutal, etc. Which in this case we probably are going to be, especially since we're playing as Germany and we are just now starting Operation Barbarossa. So we're going to get started here in a few minutes, guys. I'm just going to get the system set up. That way we'll go ahead and be able to move right away, essentially. By the way, the tutorial in this game, it's not one that I've done. I wish I did. It's a really, really good one. And I don't know the name of the voice actor that does it, but really, really helpful, honestly, in terms of helping you to understand the game and getting you acquainted with what otherwise would be a pretty complicated game, to be honest. So let's go ahead. I think we can actually just end the turn here. Just a setup phase, essentially. We might be able to play some cards. Pre-start turn, no. Actually, we might have some decisions. Summon to Berlin, that's right. The Fuhrer has requested your presence in Berlin in order to agree upon a strategy for Operation Barbarossa. And we'll make our decision here in a few minutes. Yeah, this is absolutely a great game, Wavell. Totally agreed. Hi, Colonia, General Mayhem, Jess Miller, and V Redster. Good to see all you guys. Of course, good to see you too, Muso and Lanzer. It's kind of hard to see Lanzer's name because he's got that teal color. I can't stand that color on Twitch, but it is what it is, right? So I'm definitely going to go ahead and go to Berlin, and we are going to support Hitler's plans, or we could try to demand military independence. Definitely don't want to do this. Don't want to do that, I should say. And in terms of the oil train, a spy at Minsk Railroad informs us that a large train is scheduled to cross the border at approximately 0300 in the morning of the offensive. It's part of regular oil deliveries that we are currently receiving from Rusland. We've been told that the train carrying 2,000, I don't know what that stands for, of oil, a substantial amount. So we could delay offensive if need to capture the train, or we could ignore the train and the offensive will proceed as planned, or capture the train if possible. That's what I'm going to decide. The train was delayed and our commanders were unwilling to wait any longer. 40% chance of a good outcome, so I believe we did capture the train. Now they're asking us for select route for Army Group North. And let's convert the Kaunas Riga Narva line here. All right, the route is actually unchanged, and we can also go here to select route. There's also some actual alternative history possibilities if we want to take those. I don't necessarily want to, but for instance, if we go over here, we can actually say we can trust Antonescu. I believe he is a reliable ally who will support the Iron Guard. I recommend he be fully involved in the planning and execution of the Southern Theater of Operation Barbarossa. So this will basically allow the forces on the Romanian front to launch their offensive on the first day, along with everyone else. We would lose some VPs in the process, though. I'm going to try that. I'm actually going to try. So we'll see what happens. And this will allow us to push that front forward, which would be pretty important. Now let's end the turn. Would also recommend having the game on autosave just in case. It's always good to take that precaution. Okay, here we go. On top of everything, the command organization is too ponderous to effect swift operational regrouping and reaction to our attack, and so the Russians will have to accept battle in the disposition in which they were deployed. Interesting. The Führer, after listening to all advice, has issued a directive and expects all commanders to adhere to his preferred strategy. I love that picture. It's just kind of ridiculous. Let's go for it. So obviously we have Leningrad, all the major cities. Leningrad, of course, modern-day St. Petersburg. Okay, so this is the War Diary of Private Hugo. This is a really cool addition to the game. I'm not necessarily going to read the War Diary because it's going to take a lot away from the actual gameplay. But it's really cool, and basically you follow the story of a private in the German army. Depending on how well you do or how poorly you do, that diary is going to reflect the situation. Also, the amount of movement you do is quite important. Alright, so now we're going to start the attack. I wonder how I want to start here. So there's a lot of different possibilities in terms of how we want to approach this one. But of course, we do want to break through with the tanks. That's going to be pretty important. So I think I'm going to start by trying to hit these units over here with just some regular attacks, basically. Let's go ahead and list our boys. Send in the 269th Infantry Division. They'll have the honor of being the first to strike into Rusland. Here we go. It looks like, yep, sure enough, we forced them to retreat. You can see the damage done there to their morale, their health, etc. We've definitely wiped out quite a lot of them. Nonetheless, we want to keep on pushing, so I'm going to hit this infantry division. And really, the main reason I'm attacking these guys is just so that my tanks can push through. What we want to do is cut off the enemy entirely, and there's only a few ways to make sure that happens. Alright, let's get these guys to go ahead and move a bit. And I'm trying to get them on opposite hexes because that actually allows them to perform better. If you could imagine like a really large battlefield, if you have units that are able to actually come in and attack from two different sides, that's going to increase your concentric attack. 100% would become a complete surrounding. So that's pretty good. It improves our attack power. We're going to go ahead and do that. Good work. Major retreats there, and they're pretty heavily damaged as well, but still not enough to squeeze through, really. So I'm going to keep on moving units through. Move this unit up here. So what I'm going to do is attack this unit, but I'm going to try to avoid using any tanks. Let's use that guy, that guy, that guy. And 3-on-1, we're still going to have really good odds on our side. Although they did manage to put up a pretty good fight against that bottom infantry division. Nonetheless, we succeeded in pushing them back. It might take a few turns to get these guys to fully retreat. Now, we have an SS division in this particular part. Now, keep in mind, at this early stage of the war, the SS really was not necessarily the elite infantry we know of today. But in this game, they actually do give the SS considerable power, considerable strength, better munitions, although not with all the divisions. For those of you that have seen me play the game before on the channel, there are absolutely cases where if you're playing with one of the SS mechanized divisions, you can get easily beaten. So that definitely happens as well. So I want to go save those guys. The tank corps we just sent over here, we're cutting off the enemy, but we also want to keep pushing forward. First things first, we've got to get rid of these guys. Send in the SS right here, and this is the SS Motorized Division Totenkopf. So actually, I'm not going to send them in because they could potentially get behind enemy lines. Hello, welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us. There we go, a retreat. Beautiful. And I'm going to grab the Totenkopf Division here. Look at that. We can get right behind the enemy, right to Le Piage. I'm sure I'm mangling that name, but I try nonetheless. Let's go ahead and list the attackers here. This isn't going to be as strong an attack, but since the enemy's unprepared, we should be able to still force a retreat. And sure enough, there we go. Now keep in mind, a retreat is not nearly as good as a total rout, and we can certainly make that happen. We can also take a look here at the general on this front, which is General Obsthopner. Let's go ahead and grab some of the infantry here. All men must fight. Make sure all our men are also pushing up on the front. We can't just stay put. Should have just done a group move mechanic here, which is just clicking that. Has someone else joined the channel? Wow, getting a lot of interest today. Welcome, guys. I said I wasn't going to use tanks, but I'm going to use tanks for this attack. Now, keep in mind, this game takes a while, and I mean a while. You better have a lot of time on your hands. We're probably not going to finish this turn for, I would say, another 20 minutes, if I'm correct, just to get this first turn going. So I might speed that up just for the, for you guys viewing. But nonetheless, this game is going to require quite a tremendous amount of movement, planning, decision-making, etc. Let's move over here. Definitely don't want the Reds on this flank. Let's go ahead and try to break through. We're getting some concentric pluses here as well. What I really want to get to is that enemy HQ. Obviously, wiping out enemy HQs is going to help us tremendously. Stalin has basically purged his entire officer class already. So the few officers he has left probably are guys that he wants to keep alive. Full road, Stalin. There we go. Retreat. Well done. These are enemy cavalry units, of course. You would imagine that they wouldn't be that effective, but they can actually put up an okay fight. Same with our cavalry units, actually. Actually, I can increase that attack power, and I will, just to ensure that this unit gets damaged as much as possible. And we'll see there, and actually it seems like the increase in men didn't really increase the damage on the unit, so we'll remember that for the future. This guy forward as well, the 131st Infantry Division. Get the men. Yeah, pretty even in terms of the morale loss there, so I'm not convinced that that helps too much. These guys are, of course, going to retreat into pretty large groups, so next turn, we'll have to clean them up. We'll have to get closer, attack again, and just reduce them until they either run, retreat, or surrender, of course. There we go. You guys can see now that I'm trying to move stacks, entire stacks together. And I'm still going to check to see if we can get another attack on the enemy. If we can, I'll go for it. Look at that. These guys are already pretty badly wounded, so hopefully we'll wipe them out here. Look at that. We didn't wipe them out, but we badly damaged them. This guy's definitely going to get hit. Now, of course, I won't send the HQ in, and I don't recommend anybody sending HQs during a fight. Unless, the odds are just barely about to be in your favor, and you want to throw in an HQ and risk it. It's obviously not made for these kind of fights. Let's move forward. Our tanks are still back there. We're not moving them forward until we can actually get a breakthrough with our infantry. Because the mistake we made last time was sending our tanks forward too early, and they ended up getting caught up behind enemy lines and just completely destroyed, really. Move this guy forward. Come on, man. Oh, no! Sorry, guys. That was a major mistake. Since this general is actually leading the other army, we have to get him back. Same might be true with these infantry divisions. We'll soon find out. Now, these guys are badly damaged. I'm wondering if I should go ahead and attack with my tank, and against my own best judgment, I'm going to try. It actually wasn't that bad. You can see we had some losses, quite a few losses, but we crushed the enemy here and forced them to retreat. And now they're probably going to be in that big stack or stank with their general. I'm going to grab this group, move them right there to the border. Got a tank unit here. Absolutely going to put him in harm's way to cut off some enemy rail lines. And if people want to know if I think that's necessary, absolutely. Absolutely. We still have a lot of work to do, too. We have not even gotten close to finishing all the turns on this screen. Don't forget, we're taking the alternative history scenario where the Romanians get to attack right away. That's another thing to consider. So let's take a look over here and see what these guys have to offer in terms of defense. Doesn't seem to be too strong here, and I'm actually going to send in some Romanian tank divisions. No, I won't do that. I'll send in the German infantry divisions, and they should be able to do pretty well against these much weaker Soviet forces in the south. Another reason to do that alternative history scenario thing is this southern front is actually a really, really dangerous one. It's really easy for the enemy to break past the Romanians. So this gives you a little bit of a bonus chance to turn that around. Wow, someone else joining the channel. Welcome. I have to start streaming this on my Twitch. This is amazing. Well done. Okay, here we go. List. See, in this case, I really want to throw in the general, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hope that our men do well against a Russian tank. They don't have their T-34s yet, and they're not prepared, so they are retreating. I doubt much of the crew is even in the tank. They might just kind of be near a Daka near a tank, and all of a sudden they spot a tank. Oh my goodness, what do we do? In this case, we retreated, and I'm not surprised. That's a Romanian division. Not to say the Romanians are not good fighters. They just lack resources on this front. Hello, wow, really? Let's take a look here at the chat. This is pretty cool, man. Thank you, Javasims. Javasims, I believe that's correct. Might as well go ahead and introduce myself since we had so many people join. I am Agrippa Maxenius. I do quite a lot of Slytherin streams here. And thanks for coming to our Decisive Campaigns Barbarossa stream. This is definitely a game that is beloved by the community. And I can understand why. Now, we really want to break through this big chunk of enemies here. And I think the best thing to do is like try to get behind them over here. That would work out really well. But we might need to send some tanks in. Let's go ahead and first we'll just go ahead and attack. Got our SS unit right there. That's the Motorized Division Viking. Wish we didn't have to attack with them, but I think we're going to be forced to. Alright, nice retreats. What we want to do is get these guys in a big stack and then just essentially use the Hammer of Thor on them. Here we go. Nice concentric attack here. We are going over a little bit, but I don't think it'll affect us too poorly or too negatively. There we go. Try to break through here as well. In this case, we're just trying to weaken the line. We're not trying to push as much in this area. Just want to weaken it a bit. And I think so far we're doing a damn good job. 1, 2, 3. Look at that. That was a nasty retreat. At this point, we will try to move our guys up, of course. Just keep that line flowing. But I don't like situations like this where there's a little gap. So I want to see if I can get this unit over here. Probably not. Yeah, we're going to have to leave that gap open. It does not make me feel good. But we'll actually take the SS Motorized Division 3rd Reich and put it over here. It's a lot better at breaking through enemy lines. But in this case, we're going to do something a little bit different. and that is to use it to break through these enemy lines and eventually get to their rail system here. Most of the rail systems coming to Lvov are coming from Kiev, so if we could cut off Kiev, we are going to be doing our guys a big favor. 174 of 300, come on, let's do it, men. And they retreated, just like we thought they would. Now let's take our tank divisions. We're going to try to do this one by one, so move this guy back here. We've actually encountered an enemy HQ. Unfortunately, we're not close enough to do any damage. But I'm actually going to bring the tank in for an attack. Now, typically I wouldn't do this because, again, in the Blitzkrieg, we really want to get these tanks past the enemy lines as quickly as possible. We don't want to stop to attack. But I'm making a slight detour here just because this target is completely open. We could still use mostly our infantry, but we'll send in one of these tank divisions, the 11th Panzers. Sure, they're itching to get into battle with the Soviets, and there we go. Let's move forward over here. Nice. Once again, in this position, we might have to use our tanks. Don't want to, but gotta do what you gotta do. So no, we have plenty of infantry, but we definitely want to break through. And like I said, this is only turn one. Actually, turn one is probably one of the most challenging turns in the entire game. So this is a very long sort of playthrough. It's not going to be, you know, instantaneous. It's going to take a while. Still got some cavalry here we can take on. Anytime you see cavalry, be pretty certain that you can break through. Unless, of course, it's Red Guard cavalry, in which case, back up a bit and watch out. Grab this guy as well. I actually could have attacked if I had moved here, so I'm going to move over here. And that's a motorized division. We have to remember that. This is not a motorized division. This is a tank division, but we are going to attack because the HQ is right there, Korobov's HQ. And attacking and destroying that would net us a bunch of points. Even moving it away from the front would make sure that the enemy doesn't have nearly as many supplies running in. There we go. Major retreat by Korobov. Love that. We've got a huge group of enemies here. We're absolutely going to send in our best and brightest. And get up to 300. So I'm absolutely going to attack with the tanks on this one. And we got a concentric plus of 39%. Should be a nice attack. We're also facing Soviet tanks. But again, this is the time of the BT-7, things like that. So I'm not really that afraid of their tank divisions. And sure enough, they retreated. Brest-Litovsk is completely in our hands. I'm going to make sure, though. Take a look here in the chat if anybody has any questions regarding Decisive Campaigns Barbarossa. I think it's a game I know a little bit about. I've played a lot of it. I've lost it a lot of times. The only time I got a victory was as the Russians, and that was out of pure luck because it was late game, and the Germans started to sort of fade away. We're here once again. I'll cut off some rail lines here in the north. And also be able to attack. Go for the enemy tank divisions. They're not very strong right now, and that's precisely why I want to wipe them out. Had a lot of losses there. Grodno could potentially be in our hands, so let's go for it. But we don't want to get too overextended, especially with our their armored units. We want to make sure that, yeah, it's great to keep them on the line here, but we want to break through with them. We don't want them to be just frontline units. Okay, here we go. We got an HQ and a tank division. And it looks like we got both of them to pull back. Very nice. Welcome aboard, Tepic Plug. Yogic Fire, forget about skirmishes. MP is all the rage, in my opinion. MP is very fun in this game, but I see you guys were talking about Sanctus Reach. Still not sold on the skirmish maps. I really like the skirmish maps, and the thing about Sanctus Reach that you definitely have to keep in mind is You know, Sanctus Reach was made with the board game in mind, with our, not the board game, the miniature game in mind. So, you know, skirmish maps to me just kind of remind me of like a miniature map with my friends or something like that. To me, that it's much better than having a concrete or an extremely concrete storyline, and especially with some of the DLC like Sons of Cadia, there's definitely a concrete storyline there. But I don't know. I'm a fan of the skirmish maps. Could just be me. Let's go ahead and attack this unit once again. Another Soviet general here. Oh man, they're panicking. Oh, look at that. We destroyed a Soviet general. Unbelievable. We took him prisoner. We destroyed all these other units. They're all our prisoners now. A ton of prisoners. That is epic. There's no other way to put that. I want to see if we can follow up with a few more attacks. No, I'm not going to attack with just one unit. That would be a waste. And we'd probably lose that unit. Not get him shot up real bad. It's good to see that most of our guys have gone out and attacked, but we still have a few that have to make some decisions, of course. This one right here, for instance. And yeah, I think I'm going to move him up for an attack. We might as well. And this is when the Soviets are going to be at their weakest, so you do want to try to hit them. But you also want to remember to cut them off. There we go. We crushed some of those units, broke them. Can't get much better than that. And if we take this cavalry unit, maybe we can move him forward as well. No, it doesn't look like he's going to be very useful in terms of taking enemy positions. So what I'm going to do instead is move all these guys forward and hit that enemy tank. Or group of tanks. And I'll actually use my own on this one. I'm assuming that our tanks can do a lot more damage than our infantry against an armored unit. And I think I was right. Look at that. Pretty much halved his strength. Now we have to worry about that group of units. This also gives us basically an update on our relationship with the different generals. Looks like the general for Army Group South, von Rundstedt, does not like us. Most people are pretty neutral with us, however, except for Hitler. Hitler seems to be pretty much on our side, and that's only because we agreed with his plan to move east. And it's obviously not a great plan, because he expects us to get to Moscow before winter. It's pretty much total madness, but you can't disagree with him, or else bad things happen. And I'm not going to let you know what things can happen in this game to your character if you don't follow orders, or if you start having a bad relationship with one of the generals, or with Hitler himself. But I think you guys can probably guess what will probably happen. Let's go ahead and grab these guys. Someone should be able to move forward. I think so. Yeah, thought so. Alright, Przemysl. 1, 2, and we're sending these guys in as well. Some Romanian troops. Nice. Got a retreat. A retreat on the southern front is so unlikely. Thankfully, we took that alternative history. So at this point, yeah, I'm going to have to send in a lot of Romanians, as you can see, to equal just one Soviet infantry division. And we probably still won't be able to beat them. We did make them retreat, but not without some serious losses. So we'll keep that up, try to weaken this force. But, you know, in terms of advancing on the southern front, it's pretty tough to do. I think we'd have to divert some units or something like that. What about this? A lot of these units seem to be kind of wounded. I don't know if they're just not veterans or something like that, so I'm going to send the stronger units in this attack. I would think that makes sense. Nice. Major retreat there. Let's move forward. Another important reason to move forward is to make sure that the retreating forces don't start spreading out. You want to keep them nice and bunched up. I think we've done everything we need to do. Let's take a look at the possible decisions. So, civilian oil allocation. I've calculated that once our initial stockpile of oil runs out, there will be a shortfall of 1.9 million barrels per month for the Vaterland. That's what I'm guessing the BBLS stands for. This shortfall will severely impact our ability to prosecute Barbarossa and will need to be made up from other sources. Okay, so right now current civilian use is small but significant amount in this area ripe for savings. There's a war on. Civilians should be willing to make sacrifices to support our armed forces. I'm going to have to agree. So I'm going to request civilian allocation. We've got 84 political points. Let's ask for it to be reduced by a quarter. We're going to try to get the civilians on our side. Joseph Goebbels is unimpressed. The Fuhrer is unimpressed. That's not good, and it looks like our relationship with Goebbels is now poor. Not good. Security divisions for Army Group South. Now remember that the actual general of Army Group South is actually kind of annoyed with us right now. So he is the cousin of von Rox, who commands RAA and Harris Group Nord. He lunched with me recently here at OKW on the way to the Ostfront. I understand that his 3 divisions are currently mopping up in the Sud. I suggest that you go easy on him, as he has divisional commanders, both General Ruswam and Homme de Coberel. It is best to leave them or tidy up, or is this partisan threat becoming more menacing? Who knows? If you see him, kindly pass on my regards and tell him he owes me a decent bottle of schnapps. I have no idea what he's asking here. So we could switch over immediately to providing security, and I think I'm going to do that. I really do want to have a good relationship with Army Group South. So we're going to see if von Rundstedt will start to help us out. As a result of the Austrian Anschluss in 1938, we have available a number of small oil fields that are in a poor state of development. Petroleum geologists have calculated that we could increase the current production of 3.8 million barrels a year to over 12 million barrels a year in a reasonable period. This is a worthwhile project. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to support the initiative. I'm sure this will get some people pissed off with us, but the Fuhrer is pleased. So that's good enough for now. Reports are in from all 3 Luftwaffe commandants, and it appears our initial air offensive has been an outstanding success. In fact, it is hard to believe the extent of our victory, but reconnaissance flights have confirmed what the logical mind can't fathom, and this is truly amazing. Initial estimates are over 2,000 enemy planes destroyed, most on the ground, at the cost of approximately 40 of our own planes. Fragmentation bomblets used against runways were found to, on occasion, explode prematurely, and this accounted for about half our losses. So we actually had some mechanical malfunctions there. The few enemy fighters that did manage to get airborne were easily dealt with. A poor level of pilot training was evident. It is important to not forget that we are fighting a primitive people, and we should not expect them to have harnessed the power of flight to achieve military aims. Nor should we be surprised when they manifestly failed to take even basic defensive precautions at the airfields. It will be a short campaign. This is, of course, a letter from Hermann Göring. We could cancel the air offensive, or the Luftwaffe to switch to supporting the troops on the ground, or maintain the offensive for 4 more days. The Red Army will find it difficult to operate, but no ground support will be available. I'm going to go ahead and trust that he wants to remain in the sky a bit longer, so I'll actually maintain the offensive for 8 more days, and hopefully he'll be happy. Göring is pleased, so his relationship now with us is neutral, which I'll accept, and now we're going to end the turn. So like I said, guys, that was just turn 1, and how many minutes did we spend on that? About half an hour. That was about a 30-minute turn right there. Let's take a look here at the chat. Hey, how you doing, Searcher? Good to see you, man. Great to see you here. Send Goebbels to Romania, says Yogic Fire. That's an option. I wish it was. Nice, well done, well done. Yes, it is turn-based, Artrup. Definitely turn-based. It's also got some RPG elements to it, which it's very, very hard to find in most strategy games. And yes, we do have the Finnish front as well. I'm glad someone mentioned that. I tend to not do much on the Finnish front. Occasionally, I'll move forward and try to attack, but in general, I just kind of want to keep the Soviets at bay. I just don't want them pushing, essentially. So we will start moving forward here. That's not a bad idea. And in terms of the cards, he mentioned the cards. So what we could do here, we could actually add some blitzkrieg maneuvers to the different army groups. We could also bring in artillery, etc. I wouldn't mind allocating some artillery to Army Group Center. So let's take a look here. We could go ahead. I think we could support Army Group Center. Let me play the card. And let's take a look here. Yeah, let's do that. It's going to take 4 days to provide the artillery support, and we could also change our posture to blitzkrieg, but I believe our guys are already on a blitzkrieg posture, if I'm not mistaken. Eventually, we will be using the rest and refit cards. These are very, very important, but we don't need them right this second. As for transport, we could organize transport on Army Group Center, which I think is probably a good idea. Yes. So we're going to do this. Actually, I think I'll give it to the 9th Army. Paulus's, I believe. Von Bock, excuse me, and Von Kluge. All right, nice. So we'll do that for now, and we will end the turn. Now, of course, it's going to be the Soviet turn, and we might get some updates on the general relations with us, or other things, of course. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think they're going to do any counterattacks, but what they'll probably do is start retreating to try and avoid an encirclement, which is a very smart move. Soundtrack for the game is also really nice. Reminds me of like the old Panzer General games. I just really enjoy it. Sort of gets you in the Eastern Front mood, as it were. So a lot of retreats here by the enemy. And these are all tactical retreats, of course. In fact, they managed to cut off one of our units west of Riga, although I think we'll be able to save that guy pretty easily. And taking Riga and Windau is usually a pretty easy thing to do initially. Riga is, of course, a pretty important port, but the Russians are not going to lose, millions of men defending it. Maybe a few 100,000, but not millions. Okay, Finland has been attacked by the Russian air forces. She considers herself at a state of war with Russia. The following divisions... Okay, so this is completely my fault. The SS Motorized Division Das Reich is not in their correct area of operation. This is, of course, another letter from our young recruit. And again, I'm not going to read through this, but a very neat part of the game. Really, really fun stuff. And absolutely adds a level of, another sort of level of roleplay, as it were. So we need to find where that other guy is, because he's going to cost us political points while he's outside the line. I hope we discover where he's gone. So as you can see, this SS division is cut off. The SS division Totenkopf. What I'm going to do is get behind the enemy here. Let's see how this works. Just basically attacking from both sides. You can see that concentric is going up. We should be able to break out this SS division, but we'll see. Nice major retreats. Another unit right here, and it looks like, yeah, that's right. The SS divisions, especially the motorized ones, get 2 attacks instead of the usual 1. Definitely some useful information. Now what I'm going to do is take one of these tanks, and as you can see, just go ahead and drive right through the enemy rail line. Same over here, right through the enemy rail line. This is definitely one of the keys to victory. I'm going to move this guy up here just so that we get that concentric attack. And maybe we can get another few attacks here. Wow. On this fat stack of enemies. I'm definitely going to try. Send in the SS and the rest of our troops. I'm going to send in the full stack at this point. Nicely done. That was wonderful. And this fat stack also... Actually, it's only 2 units, but I still want to try and get them to retreat. Once you see, of course, this falling down from 66 to like 59, 47, etc., kind of lets you know you want to probably eventually use one of those rest and refit cards. This early on, though, usually in the first 2 to 3 turns, I don't use those cards. Maybe that's why I haven't managed to win the game yet, but I usually wait till turn 3 or 4. Let's take a look here. This guy's going to be wiped out for sure. Close, close. I don't like the amount of Soviet tanks massing right here. That is a cause for concern. Major cause for concern. We want to get rid of that, or at least cut off their supply line from Minsk. See what we can do about that supply line. Oh, so close. And we stumbled across some enemy tanks, of course. Yeah, I'm gonna engage. I mean, I know I shouldn't, but I'm gonna engage. I don't need these guys in my way. Here we go, some retreats. It's not that we're not gonna win the battle against them, it's just that, you know, our job right now is to push through the lines, so we should really leave this up to our infantry, if that makes sense. But sometimes the infantry needs some help. In this case, they definitely do. Almost completely crushed right there. And let's do the same to these guys. This line is crumbling, and as you can see, the rail line here, despite the fact that it's still bringing in supplies, it's getting very small. It's getting very, very small. It certainly can't bring supplies to this area, which is why this area will probably be even easier to deal with. Let's go ahead and attack. And there we go. Major panic. Once the actual panic button turns orange and these buttons right here to the left, or I should say this meter turns red, the enemy's in some trouble. Get to Bialystok. If we can send anybody in, these guys are finished. Very nearly. Here we go. Once again, we're going to have to use our tanks. And I'm sending them right there, and now they are cut off from Minsk. So what we want to do is just close that gap even more. We've got plenty of troops here that are capable of fighting. We just want to kind of spread them out. Don't forget that these stacks can get pretty overwhelming, and you're also going to get bonuses to your concentric attack if you move them around. But also keep in mind that you want to keep these armies separate. You don't want to be moving other troops from other armies into this army just to make your concentric attack better. Nonetheless, this is a pretty good start here. I don't know why the 45th Infantry Division has that blue. Maybe that's the army that we got separated. We'll find out soon enough. And there we go. Broken. They're completely destroyed. And a retreat by the others. Really tempted to go for that HQ. Yeah, we're going for it. So this is one way to discover which of my guys is out of line. Is just to select the general here. Once you see a flash outside of your sector, these red lines determine your sector. Then we'll know which guy is in the wrong area. So far, I can't find him. We're not going to worry about it now, but obviously that's something you typically want to fix pretty quickly. So here, over near Tarnopol, look at this. We might even be able to get to Lvov. Well, I'm going to be safe and try to just go here for now. Look at that. Sure enough, an enemy unit waiting for us. Let's try to get behind Lvov. They're definitely defending their rail line. I have to say the AI is usually not this bright in the first few turns, but they're doing a good job. And obviously defending that rail line to the point where we literally can't even get onto the rail line is allowing them to keep getting those supplies from Kiev. And that's something we don't want to happen. Let's move forward. Come on. If we're going to have a tank battle, let's have a proper one. Panzerfausts! Nice. Major retreat there. Fortunately, we don't have anybody to attack on this end. At least not yet. Yeah, we'll get a concentric bonus to this. And look at that. We can go up to 400 here. That's pretty rare, but you can see our concentric bonus is 79%. Since this unit is almost completely surrounded. And sure enough, completely panicked and broken there. There's just nothing left. So they're going to basically become our prisoners. Now, if we want to take a look at the stats here, and I really like these stats. This basically knows us it shows us the amount of total troops. We can take a look at the amount of numbers we have, but what we want to look at are casualties sustained. So this is just from the beginning of the conflict. Since we've started this stream, we can see that the amount of men we've lost, or either killed or wounded, is 24,000. The Soviets have lost 126,000. Of course, that could be killed, wounded, captured, etc. Really interesting stuff there. It definitely gives you a perspective of the amount of bloodshed in these first few days of the actual Blitzkrieg itself. And of course, throughout the entire, all of World War II, but specifically the Eastern Front. I mean, just a nightmare for anybody involved. Let's go ahead and see if we can list some attackers. No, these boys have had their fill of warfare. It's actually General Kuznetsov. Ooh, I like Kuznetsov. Let's attack him. Sure enough, we panic General Kuznetsov. They're going to get out of there pretty quickly. And it's also going to allow us to keep that rail area unoccupied. Let's grab our Totenkopf division. Now, you do have to have a lot of patience to play the game. It's extremely rewarding when you actually manage to do something, either that the German or Soviet army didn't manage to do historically, or you manage to complete just a major objective. It's really rewarding, but you can see here, you've got to have the patience to sort of follow up with all these divisions. If you forget even a single one, you're going to greatly reduce your chances of winning the game, especially if you're playing as the Germans. It's equally hard to play as the Soviets in this game, but obviously late game, if you're playing as the Germans, then you're going to start to have issues with supply and with things like that. If you're the Soviets, you're going to have those issues in the early game, and you're also going to have some very inexperienced divisions in the early game. But if you can stick it through and keep the Germans away for long enough, then you're going to get some upgrades, some Red Guard units, etc., and it's really going to improve your chances of a successful victory. So, again, you got to give time with this game. For those of you guys that have played it, you know what I'm talking about. It's not something you just play overnight, although it's definitely one of those games where it's like, let me just play one more turn and I'll go to sleep. Just one more turn and I'll go to sleep. You end up staying up all night, only to be told by regimental commanders that you've been fired and you've been relieved from your post. It's like, what? After all that work? That's what I get? All right, we're going to move these guys up over here. We're actually using some of our own cavalry and some tanks. Why not? Love that cavalry chart in the game, just to show, the damage. We might take a look at that before the end of the stream here. One more time. Tank on tank. Come on, let's do it. Yeah, those BT-7s are not going to stand up to Panzer IVs. Let's take a look here at the chat. Issy Ling is saying, from what I remember in history, the campaign against Russia didn't go well. No, I mean, absolutely. The campaign against Russia, well, initially it went very well. The first few months went extremely well. It was once they got all the way into the country that they started to have some serious problems. Latest theory is criminal gangs. What in the world? The lost unit is under the attack, under the stack south of Brest-Litovsk. Thanks, Erzak. Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of game, Lancer. That's very true. I mean, it's the visuals are not as striking. There are, of course, mods, things like that for the game that do change the visuals a bit. But I think really the thing that's interesting about this game is it puts you in an actual commander's position. That's why you have to make all of these decisions. And if you start to have a bad relationship or a poor relationship with the other generals, or of course with Hitler himself, you're in a lot of trouble. If you have good relationships, you might get extra fuel. You might get, the trains are actually arriving on time a lot of the time. But, you know, so it's a lot of RP as well as gameplay. And obviously, the deeper you move into Russia, the harder things get. It's really cool to see how initially the generals are all really supportive of you, or they start to be supportive of you once you start to do really well in the Blitzkrieg. But over time, they start to kind of lose their nerve and lose their patience with you, and at that point, you really have to try hard to be victorious in the game. Let's take a look here. Hit this unit. Anyway, guys, we are coming towards the end of the stream. I'd highly recommend you guys pick this game up. It's a great one. It's probably one of my favorites in the entire Slytherin catalog. It's certainly my favorite in the Decisive Campaigns series, and there's a lot of good ones in that series. Obviously, you can also play the Decisive Campaigns, the Western Front one. I prefer the Eastern Front. When you just start to look at the number of casualties there, it's unbelievable. It really is. I mean, it just shows you how brutal this front was. 126, man. Just crazy. And obviously, you'll be able to see what happens when you're playing as a general and not doing your job, not doing the best job, or you know, failing some objectives. You'll start to see how other generals speak to you. It's a lot like being in a sort of corporation where, you know, if you're not producing, you better bet you're going to hear about it, and you better bet that the leader is going to hear about it. In this case, Adolf Hitler is going to hear about it, and it could affect your relationship with him. At the same time, sometimes Hitler will propose a completely preposterous, ridiculous idea, and you have to decide, am I going to support the Fuhrer on this, or am I going to be honest and go against him and potentially risk my relationship with a lot of other high-ranking members of the German army, etc.? These are, of course, the decisions you have to make. Now, as you can see here in the north, we are pushing very heavily with our tanks, and that's kind of what you want to do initially in the Blitzkrieg, is try and cut off the enemy rail lines here so that you can easily mop up their forces. Believe it or not, even if you're fairly new to the series, you can absolutely do a pretty good starting blitz and take a lot of prisoners here. That is definitely within the realm of possibility, but it does take some time to master exactly where to move. Like right now, I'm moving into the Dnieper swamps. Not a good place to go, I'll tell you right now. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, Musso will drop the Slytherin. Yes, Legion's Triumphant is out. That's another thing. Musso's going to drop the Slytherin and Matrix channels, and I will drop Agrippa Maxenius here. In fact, I'll go ahead and drop a playlist for Decisive Campaigns Barbarossa. It's one of those games that I really love and I highly recommend. So thanks for watching us, guys. We'll see you next week. Hope you have a great weekend, and thank you so much for watching. Take care, my friends.